The exploding town. The 2001 Hutchinson gas explosion. Is it really true that an entire town exploded in an infernal blaze as recently as 20 years ago, due to mysterious and unexplained circumstances? In the quiet town of Hutchinson, Kansas, nestled in the heart of the American Midwest, an unimaginable catastrophe was brewing beneath the surface. It was a disaster that would forever change the fabric of this small community, leaving scars that have yet to fully heal. On January 17, 2001, a series of massive explosions ripped through the town, unleashing a force of nature so powerful that it defied all logic and comprehension. This was not a terrorist attack, nor a natural disaster like a tornado or earthquake. This was something far more insidious, something lurking beneath the feet of every resident, something no one saw coming. As you dive into the harrowing details of this true-life horror story, you will uncover the sinister sequence of events that led to the Hutchinson gas explosions. Chapter 4 explores in detail the epic chain reaction that led to some of the most devastating and catastrophic building explosions ever recorded. Chapter 7 reviews the real documented paranormal events surrounding the explosion that have left many unanswered questions as to what really happened on that fateful day. From the chilling circumstances that preceded the disaster to the haunting aftermath that left a community forever changed, this real event is not for the faint of heart. Prepare to be shocked, horrified, and left questioning the very ground beneath your own feet. Chapter 1. The Sleeping Giant. Beneath Hutchinson. Hutchinson was the epitome of a sleepy Midwestern town. With a population hovering around 40,000, it was the kind of place where everyone knew their neighbors, where life moved at a slower pace, and where danger seemed a distant possibility. However, beneath its tranquil surface, a deadly giant had been slumbering for decades, one that would awaken with a vengeance. Hutchinson sits atop one of the largest salt formations in the world, known as the Hutchinson Salt Member, part of the vast Permian Basin. For years, this geological wonder had been both a boon and a potential curse for the town. The salt deposits were heavily mined, providing jobs and contributing to the local economy. However, these salt formations also played a crucial role in what was to come. The vast underground caverns created by decades of mining became the perfect traps for an invisible killer, natural gas. This gas, known scientifically as methane, had been slowly seeping into the underground voids, accumulating over time, undetected and unmonitored. The stage was set for a disaster unlike any other, but no one in Hutchinson could have imagined the horrors that awaited them. Chapter 2. The First Explosion. On the morning of January 17, 2001, residents of Hutchinson were going about their daily routines, unaware that their lives were about to be violently upended. At around 10:45 a.m., a massive explosion rocked the town. The source of the blast was a mobile home park located near downtown. The force of the explosion was so intense that it completely obliterated 2 homes, sending debris and flames skyward, and shattering windows in buildings blocks away. But this was only the beginning. As emergency responders rushed to the scene, trying to comprehend the magnitude of the situation, another explosion occurred. This time it was beneath a local store, bringing the building crashing down in a heap of rubble. Panic spread like wildfire as residents feared their town was under attack. However, there was no enemy to be seen, only a growing realization that something far more terrifying was at play. The initial response was one of confusion and fear. Law enforcement and emergency services were scrambling to understand what was happening, but they were fighting an enemy they could not see, smell, or hear until it was too late. The town's infrastructure was not equipped to deal with such a catastrophe, and the response was chaotic at best. What no one realized at the time was that these explosions were just the tip of the iceberg. Chapter 3. The Invisible Killer. As investigators and experts descended on Hutchinson, trying to piece together the cause of the explosions, a terrifying realization began to take shape. The source of the disaster was not above ground, but deep below the surface. Methane gas, which had been accumulating in the underground salt caverns for years, had finally found a way out. The gas had migrated through natural fractures and man-made boreholes, eventually finding an escape route through abandoned wells. One of these wells, located near the town, had not been properly capped or maintained. Over time, the well became a conduit for the gas to escape, building up pressure until it reached a critical point. When the gas finally found its way to the surface, it did so with explosive force, igniting upon contact with a spark, possibly from electrical equipment or static electricity. The result was a series of devastating explosions that tore through the town. The horror of the situation was amplified by the fact that the gas was completely invisible and odorless, making it nearly impossible to detect without specialized equipment. Residents were living on a ticking time bomb, unaware that at any moment another explosion could occur. The terror was palpable as the town waited in fear, unsure if or when the next blast would happen. Are you enjoying this video? Like and subscribe for more spine-chilling mysteries. We greatly appreciate you. Chapter 4. The Chain Reaction. The initial explosions on January 17th were not isolated incidents. Over the next several days, Hutchinson was rocked by a series of smaller explosions and fires as the gas continued to escape from the underground reservoirs. These secondary explosions, while less powerful than the initial blasts, were no less terrifying. Each new explosion sent waves of panic through the town, as residents feared that their homes or businesses could be next. One of the most shocking and tragic incidents occurred on January 18th, the day after the initial explosion. A massive fire erupted in the downtown area, consuming several buildings and leaving the historic business district in ruins. The fire raged for hours, with firefighters struggling to contain the flames. The destruction was so complete that entire blocks were reduced to smoldering ashes. In the days that followed, emergency workers and geologists worked around the clock, drilling relief wells to vent the remaining gas safely. However, the situation was fraught with danger. The ground beneath Hutchinson was like a powder keg, and any misstep could trigger another explosion. The town had become a war zone, with residents evacuating en masse, leaving behind their homes and belongings in a desperate bid for safety. Chapter 5. The Unseen Casualties. The physical damage caused by the explosions was immense, but the psychological toll on the residents of Hutchinson was just as severe. Many people were left homeless, their homes reduced to rubble. Others lost their businesses, their livelihoods gone in an instant. The town's infrastructure was severely damaged, with roads, utilities, and public services disrupted for weeks, if not months. Perhaps most heartbreaking of all were the lives lost in the explosions. 2 people, a couple living in one of the mobile homes that was destroyed in the initial blast, were killed. Their deaths were a stark reminder of the deadly power of the invisible killer that had taken over the town. In the aftermath, grief and shock permeated the community. Funerals were held, but the pain of loss was compounded by the knowledge that this disaster could have been prevented. The survivors were left to grapple with a profound sense of fear and uncertainty. Even after the gas leaks were contained and the immediate danger had passed, the trauma of the explosions lingered. Many residents found it difficult to return to their homes, haunted by the memories of the disaster. Some suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, struggling with nightmares, anxiety, and a pervasive sense of unease. Chapter 6. The Aftermath and the Search for Answers. In the wake of the explosions, a massive investigation was launched to determine the exact cause of the disaster and to prevent such an event from ever happening again. The investigation revealed a series of failures and oversights that had contributed to the catastrophe. The abandoned wells that had allowed the gas to escape were supposed to have been sealed and monitored, but this had not been done properly. Regulatory oversight was lax, and the dangers posed by the underground gas reservoirs had been underestimated. The state and federal governments faced harsh criticism for their handling of the situation. Lawsuits were filed by the victims and their families, seeking justice and compensation for their losses. In the end, millions of dollars were paid out in settlements, but no amount of money could erase the horror of what had happened. The Hutchinson gas explosions served as a grim wake-up call for communities across the country. New regulations were put in place to ensure that abandoned wells were properly sealed and that gas reservoirs were closely monitored. But for the residents of Hutchinson, the damage had already been done. The town would never be the same, its identity forever tied to the tragedy of January 17, 2001. Chapter 7. The Paranormal Events of Hutchinson. In the years that followed, Hutchinson became a town haunted by its past. For some, the memories of the explosions were too painful to bear, and they left the town, never to return. But for those who stayed, the disaster became a part of their identity, a dark chapter in the town's history that could not be forgotten. Strange stories began to circulate in the aftermath of the explosions. Some residents claimed to hear phantom explosions in the dead of night, echoes of the blasts that had torn through the town. Others reported seeing ghostly figures near the sites of the explosions, as if the spirits of the victims were still trapped in the places where they had died. These stories, while dismissed by some as mere superstition, added an eerie dimension to the already grim legacy of the Hutchinson gas explosions. The town became a magnet for ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts, drawn by the tales of haunted houses and restless spirits. For those who believed, Hutchinson was not just a town scarred by tragedy, but a place where the past continued to haunt the present in the most literal sense. Chapter 8. Lessons Learned and Unanswered Questions. As the years passed, the town of Hutchinson slowly rebuilt, both physically and emotionally. Buildings were reconstructed, and new businesses opened where the old ones had stood. The community came together, determined to move forward and not let the disaster define them. But even as the town tried to heal, questions remained. Could the disaster have been prevented? What warning signs were missed? And who was ultimately responsible for the failure to address the dangers lurking beneath the town? These questions continue to haunt not only the residents of Hutchinson, but also the regulators and companies involved in the drilling and maintenance of the underground wells. The Hutchinson gas explosions were a stark reminder of the hidden dangers that can lie beneath the surface, unseen and unacknowledged until it is too late. For other communities sitting atop similar geological formations, the lessons of Hutchinson serve as a warning, a call to vigilance and caution in the face of unseen threats. Chapter 9. The Unfinished Story of Hutchinson. More than 2 decades have passed since the Hutchinson gas explosions, but the story of the exploding town is far from over. While the immediate threat has been addressed, the long-term effects of the disaster continue to ripple through the community. The emotional scars left by the explosions are still felt by those who lived through it, and the town's identity remains inextricably linked to that fateful day. In a sense, Hutchinson has become a symbol, a reminder of the fragility of our everyday lives and the ever-present possibility of disaster. The town's story is one of survival and resilience, but it is also a story of loss and tragedy. As we reflect on the events of January 17, 2001, we are reminded that sometimes the greatest dangers are those we cannot see, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Hutchinson gas explosions are a chilling reminder of the unexpected dangers that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most ordinary places. The town's tale is one of horror, resilience, and unanswered questions. For those who lived through it, the memories of that day are a haunting reminder of how quickly life can change. For the rest of us, Hutchinson stands as a testament to the power of nature and the importance of vigilance in the face of the unknown. As you finish this account, take a moment to think about the ground beneath your feet. What lies below? Are you truly safe? The story of the exploding town may be over, but its lessons remain as relevant as ever. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and share.